Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't even get the music going today. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? I'm Willie Bragg, Braggland slash Willie Bragg. Braglands slash Willie Bragg show. Today's a special post-election show. And Jimmy had a situation right now, emergency situation. However, we wanted to let y'all know that we're still the show must go on. The show must go on. So, hope everybody's doing well today. And let me take care of Let me take care of something here real quick, and before we get profoundly started. Aha! I know where I fucked up. Give me a second here. Hello, I'm as I said, you know me. I'm Willie Bragg. As I said, I had a situation. And what the heck is going on here? We're going to fix that. Welcome to the show. And for some reason, I'm having a little bit of difficulty right now, but we're going to have a show anyway, and it's about the convention and what happened with the convention and the highlights and some stories related to the convention, prior to convention, various elections around the country. So that's what we're going to be talking about today here on Bragglands. So I think that maybe the very first thing we should do is to go with the very first story. So let's go ahead and do that. Can we do that? I think we should. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play the first story here. Well, actually, what I'm going to do is play a short clip here. Well, I believe this is the Jimmy Dore clip where he's in Chicago. I don't know. Is this it? Is this this? No, this is not. Never mind. Hold on a second here. I got the wrong clip. Okay. Well, I promise you, folks, I am prepared for this show here. What we had here, it's just when you do StreamYards, everything is jumbled up. Right there is what I'm looking for. Overwhelmed by police presence. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, so here's Jimmy Dore in Chicago talking about the police presence in Chicago with regard to the convention at the very beginning, just a few days ago. So we'll let Jimmy Dore take it away.
We'll be in Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. So we're out here in Chicago, Michigan, and Wacker. That's the name of the street, Wacker. I don't even know her, but I don't know. Do you see any cops? Where can I find a cop? Where can I find a cop? Yeah, just tell me. Where can I find a cop with a bike? You see? Can you find a cop with a bike? So what are all these? Are they here for this protest? Look, they're moving. They're on the move. Cops are on the move. Cops are on the move. If it's up,
Do you think they need more cops?
We're having a little difficulties.
I think
I'm concerned there's not enough police presence.
so where are the cops normally? Here comes CSI 2 will be in Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville.
I'm sorry about the buffering there. For some reason, we're having a little buffering. Damn the Spectrum cable service. But basically, there's Jimmy Dore talking about Chicago, the police presence and all of that, and being what it is and all. So also what we're gonna do is give me a second here. Let me take care of this real fast. I'm having difficulties today. Give me one quick moment. I need a new computer. I bought a new one last year. But anyway, so there we have it. We have a situation in over there in with regard to Chicago. With they're fearful of what would have been a obviously a 1968 style situation, and if you remember how that went back in 1968, that was just a few more months before I was born, and suffice to say, I think always people are worried. They're always worried about a repeat of like massive riots all over Chicago, and with regard to the convention and the rioting and all that, and how would it affect the election and everything, and whatever side of the fence you're on, that would certainly be the case where you would be able to understand that. So Chicago Corner also were out there, so I got a video footage of them as well, so let me go ahead and find them real fast. So let me go ahead and do this. I think that when I have too many video clips is when I have too many video clips, that's kind of when that happens. So I'm going to be searching through here to make sure I get this correctly. It's never in order, but I think that one on the top is what I'm looking for. So here we go. All right, I think this is it. So this is this is it. This is Chicago Corner. Obviously in Chicago, present at talking to some of the people protesting at the convention. One of the biggest themes out there is the convention. So I got to do something here real quick. I'm getting a lot of all right. What's going on here is they're at the convention. And I'm going to play that, and we'll get to it. So give me a moment here. I had a phone call just now, so sorry about that, folks.
Party system. What do you think voters should 1, 2, 3, 4. That's divided by 4. We don't let your name or children or
big issue here is Gaza. I mean, ultimately what you have is a real-time genocide and something that we've never seen. But I say that because it's being streamed online, and yet we have such a, I guess just in America, it seems like a dissonance towards like accepting that or feeling like they can do something about that. And I think that ultimately stems from the two-party system that we have here. We have the DNC who will advocate pretendingly, when it comes to campaign season, to care about Arabs and to care about Muslims and to care about Palestinians. And they use their words so well. And so what we do is we ultimately leverage the little power that we have in our vote. We vote them into office like we did Biden. And in fact, I actually tried and door knocked for Biden. I really wanted to see him because I really thought at the time the lie of democracy was on the line. I thought it was true. And so I didn't want to see, Trump reelected. And so, but now what we have here is 40,000 dead Palestinians, and most of which women and children. And so I'm here today to make sure nothing like this happens in Gaza or anyone ever again. I think it's incredibly important that we see that through, all of us as humans.
We're here, yes, as a collectively, we are here for Gaza. We are here for the people in Palestine. As a Palestinian myself, I love the support that we are seeing out here. But we're not just out here just for Palestine. We're also out here for many other issues that are on the line if we don't stand together. We have many different collective issues that are going on in the U.S. right now, and the one thing that people always know is that, like, if you don't have a team, if you don't have people from different backgrounds, you're not going to find a solution. By standing here, we're finding a solution. One, for Gaza. We're standing here for different individual rights. As a person that lives in the United States, as a person who also travels overseas, I want to say the most important thing here that I 100% see overseas is a sense of community, a sense of belonging. And when we're standing here, we're creating a community for Palestine outside of Palestine.
What compelled you to come out today and participate in the demonstrations and the protests with the DNC here in town, getting yours and other people's voices heard?
I came out here today to help out as a street medic. We're anticipating some violent attacks on our people protesting from the police, unfortunately. And so we're here to try to spread calm, pull people to the side, and treat any injuries that the police may cause the people.
I've noticed that there are varying different political entities out here today, one of them being our organization, and it seems like everybody's getting along, that we all stand together, in the support for the Palestinian people. The last I heard, over 30,000 people have been killed, women, children, mostly. And we are against that. October 7th, yes, it was tragic. It was horrible, but it doesn't compare to the, genocide that is going on right now in Palestine, and, not only myself, but our organization, stands against the genocide in Palestine. And that's why we're out here today.
Well, the major issue for me is the message of my dog: love thy neighbor. My dog has taught me that if you love thy neighbor, everything else falls into place. It's not the La La Land based definition of love thy neighbor. It's simply that living a life of service to others. You'll never be poor. You'll never have fear. You'll have a community. And look at dogs. Less barking, more wagging. So it doesn't matter whether you're a communist or a right-winger, a progressive or conservative. Everybody has in common they love their dogs. So let's start conversing with each other from that premise.
The way that we're being robbed of our money and healthcare workers here too. They're paying taxes as they're drowning in student loans. We're caring for patients that are uninsured, right? They're being bankrupted by the medical industrial complex, and all of our money is being taken to actually, fund all this for the government, including bombing hospitals abroad, bombing our own peers abroad, right? Bombing other patients abroad. It's like we're in the upside down. Nothing makes sense.
Well, like in the U.S., we have a hierarchy system. We have a person who's in charge of another person. There isn't a way for us to go above or beyond another person. The only thing that we can do is find a candidate who's willing to run into these positions and vote for them. You see, like how we always say, like the government is supposed to work for us and not the other way around. I want to say within these past 100 years, I want to say it's been the completely opposite. The government has been going against what the overall American system has been saying. One of the things that we need to start doing is, like, while some people may think that protesting or striking or stuff like this may not be working, if you look around, 90% of these people, I want to say, like, other than the Arab Muslims, wouldn't have known what's going on in Palestine without protests like this, without a strike like this, without each individual protest, because this is built of, like, not just protests for Palestine, but this is built with different coalitions. Without protests like these, people wouldn't know what's exactly going on, what problem they're fighting for. Like the purpose of a protest is to disrupt the normal purpose of things. By disrupting the normal purpose of things, you're going to get people who are interested or just walking by saying, wait, what are they protesting? And then want to get involved.
I personally, as well as our organization personally, believes that the two-party system is rigged, and that, unfortunately, third-party politics doesn't stand a chance, in this country right now. I was personally for Kennedy, but unfortunately I've had to go and switch to which is the less of the two evils. Is it Kamala, who will bring about World War III if she gets into the White House as president, or Trump? It's basically which is less of the two evils. I don't agree with some of President Trump's policies while he was in office, but he was the first president, to reach out to the DPRK, North Korea, reached out. Unfortunately, he was sabotaged by John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, with the peace talks. And I believe that if he gets back in, to the presidency, we will see an official end to the war in Korea, and that, peace will come upon the Korean peninsula.
So you feel there's a better chance for de-escalation with Trump than with Harris?
Yes, I do. There's definitely, a greater opportunity. Like I said, with Trump, he was the first president, to officially reach out. I believe that most major news outlets in this country are political puppets, of the two-party system.
Propaganda arms.
Yes, propaganda arms. They say that Russia, and Russian media, is, a puppet of the Russian state and Vladimir Putin. So what's CNN and MSNBC and Fox,
They all are for both sides, unfortunately.
Yes.
Vote third party in this election. It's incredibly important. And that's what I think, we can do in our, independent, in our circles. We all have our own circle of influence. I cannot unilaterally control the policy in the Middle East. But I do know that the policy in the Middle East definitely needs to be changed. And so what we can do here is we can show both the DNC and the RNC what our numbers look like in terms of how much we care about a genocide taking place in any part of the world. And so if we have enough people who may vote for, like in my example, Jill Stein, we could show both machine political parties what sort of community that they can maybe tap into in a future election if they were to actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk about addressing the concerns of our respective communities, that is the Arab communities, that is the Muslim communities, that is folks here, the LGBTQ plus community, those who care about their reproductive rights. I mean, you have so many groups here that feel underrepresented, that feel as if they're not being heard, and that feel as if like the political system around them is not working for them, instead is almost working against them and suppressing them. I mean, folks getting fired left and right for even saying the word Palestine or for being here, people feeling like they can't show their face, not because they're ashamed of anything, but because they don't want to be fired and lose their way of making a living for supporting something that they truly believe in. It's not anti-Semitic to be pro-Palestinian. It's not anti-Semitic to stick up for Gaza. It's not anti-Semitic to say what's happening in Gaza is completely wrong and should never happen to another group ever again, regardless of the religious denomination, regardless of the country of origin, sex, sexual orientation, whatever the case may be.
I just want to say free Palestine. Never again means never again for anybody, not just for the whites, not for the blacks. It means never again for every human civilization across the world.
Hey, smile.
I mean, people have to realize that they can make a difference. That speaking out does help, and taking proactive steps to right the ship is important. I mean, I see it all day, every day online. People voted for this. There's nothing you can do. Pushing back's not going to make a difference. Democrats have been in power for 90-something years. Black people never vote Republican. It's all garbage.
I think what struck me about this election cycle is how much conservatives and liberals and Democratic voters and Republicans actually have in common that are being represented by the leaders of each party that are running in this election.
It's always been that way, but it's the purpose of corporate media is to focus on the division as opposed to the commonalities.
The way the system is structured, where you have to raise money every day, and you have to brown nose the people that want to tell us what to do, then I'm encouraging the people of the world that if the people will lead, the leaders will follow. We live with the technology necessary, the social media necessary. The tool exists to think globally and act locally. Let's take care of ourselves, take responsibility and discipline in our own lives. The first medicine is what we eat. Exercise. So it's treat people the way you want to be treated. Each one teach one, and if not us, who? If not now, when? If not here, where? And as best as I can figure out, at 65 years old, the dog, and Travis in particular, who's becoming world famous as we speak, thousands of photographs just in 2 days, will lead us into the transformation of humanity.
Okay, that was Chicago Corner talking to some of the people out there at the protesting and all of that, and giving them sharing their perspective on the whole situation regarding what the main concern about the convention would be about regarding peace issues and everything. Some people will likely vote for the lesser evil. What they perceive as the lesser evil, which is Kamala Harris. Others are going to be committed to working within the confines of independent political action. We're talking about Cornel West. We're talking about Jill Stein, which I'm going to be talking about Jill Stein and Cornel West in this videos because everything kind of correlates. So it's going to be a very interesting election. And speaking of elections, I think that maybe I should get this story out of the way. I mean, I don't mean like out of the way, like I want to get it over with, but I kind of think we need to talk about this. I put this up as a possibility, but what became a possibility setting up everything here online yesterday turned out to be the reality. And so David Pakman, I know David Pakman talks about RFK dropping out to endorse Trump, and we know that's what happened, but we'll go ahead and we'll go and be amused by what David Pakman have to say, like it's the year 2014 when some of us thought he was still relevant. So anyway.
Well, how quickly things change. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be dropping out and is expected to endorse Donald Trump this Friday. There are rumors that they are trying to organize a joint event. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Nicole Shanahan will indeed kiss the ring. I told you yesterday, she told you, Nicole Shanahan in an interview with Tom Bilyeu said that what they were considering yesterday is, do we keep going or do we get out and join forces, endorse Donald Trump? We know that RFK Jr. tried to sort of shop his endorsement to both Trump and Kamala Harris in exchange for the promise of a position in their respective administrations. From what we know, they both said, we're not even interested. The report was that the Trump people said it's too obviously a quid pro quo, and that the Harris people straight up turned down the meeting, didn't respond to the meeting. And now, indeed, RFK Jr. expected to drop out by the end of the week and plans to endorse Donald Trump. It's important to remember, this is all pathetic, right? I mean, it's a big picture, it's all pathetic. Initially ran as a Democrat to inject chaos into the Democratic primary. He attracted a bunch of money from Republicans because Republicans said, oh, he's running a Democrat, he'll hurt Joe Biden, let's do it. That completely ran out of steam. So then he said, I'm actually going to be running as an independent. Initially, he probably still was bad for then presumed candidate Biden. But over time, more Democrats became wise to the whole thing, and Democrats mostly bailed. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at this point is statistically more of a hindrance to Trump. In other words, he takes significantly more from Trump than he does from Harris. Well, now he drops out to endorse Donald Trump, and that will hurt Kamala Harris. I'll tell you in a moment to what degree. But we just have to be honest. A bunch of people I know got bamboozled by Tulsi back in 2020. Many of them realized it. They wrote to me. They said, David, you were right. It was a total scam. The very same thing is going on here. The entire RFK candidacy has been one of the more painfully stupid political storylines than anyone ever fell for. It is only a negative reflection on the population of this country. And then we have to also consider what's going on behind the scenes. There is reporting that Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump Jr. have been lobbying RFK to drop out and endorse Trump because they correctly recognize this guy hurts Donald Trump. The NBC News report says a group of Trump allies has been working behind the scenes since before the Republican convention to broker a deal between Kennedy and Trump. And then the question that many of you have been asking me is, isn't this very bad for Kamala Harris? So we just have to be honest. This helps Trump. This helps Trump, but maybe not by that much. First of all, not everybody who is into RFK is going to hear him say, I endorse Trump and go and vote for Trump. Not everybody's going to. And so if you let's take an example state, Michigan right now. If you look at Michigan right now, Kamala Harris is leading by 2.4 and Kennedy's polling 5.9. So if you just say to yourself, well, heck, if Kennedy's 5.9 goes to Trump, that puts Trump 4 points ahead of Kamala Harris or wherever it ends up, 3.5 points ahead. It is really not that simple because first of all, Kennedy's 5.9 in mid to late August includes a lot of people who by November were not end up voting Kennedy. Some of that Kennedy support that's currently in the polling in Michigan that we're looking at was going to end up voting for someone else come November. And also some of them were going to stay home. Second, imagine that the outcome of that 5.9 is that 4.5 were really going to vote Kennedy. Now he gets out and endorses Trump. And from that 4.5, 2.5 ends up voting Trump, and 1.5 Harris, and half a point stays home. It helps Trump, but the point is it might be 1.5 that it ends up helping her. So the takeaway here is not, we don't have to worry about this. This does hurt Kamala Harris. It only matters in the critical and close battleground states, and there are still 10 weeks or so during which the case can be made to some of those Kennedy supporters. It's a very bad idea to go out and support Donald Trump. So we'll take it for what it is. We will cover the announcement. We'll cover the endorsement, but let's not get ahead of our skis in assuming that this is devastating to Kamala Harris. So many of us are busy. We may not always.
I won't make everybody listen to a David Pakman ad there. Everyone, we have here Shane Coughlin from MMT, Understanding MMT. And for those not familiar, introduce yourself.
So I'm Shane. I currently am on the board and one of the coordinators for a nonprofit called Understanding MMT. We work with Warren Mosler on teaching modern monetary theory. Prior to that, I was the president of KRTD Media, and where I actually had the pleasure of working with Willie there prior to this.
Yep. I guess we've known each other, almost 2 years now. So, yeah. And thank you for coming on the Willie Bragg Show / Bragglands, to help out today. With this post-convention show. Any thoughts on this Robert F. Kennedy endorsement of Donald Trump and what it could mean in the election?
Sure. So the first thing is, funny enough, I watched that video this morning. And I watched that video this morning, and a lot of people aren't going to pick up on this. But did you notice something that David Pakman said there? Whether you like RFK or not, just something important to note that he said there was RFK entered the primaries to cause chaos for Biden. So in David Pakman's opinion, just based on that and other things I've seen him say, is he saying because Joe Biden was already the president that no one should have been running against him in a primary? Whether you like any of the people, whether you liked RFK, whether you liked Cenk Uygur, whether you liked Dean Phillips, or whether you liked Marianne Williamson, is his stance there, they were injecting chaos by running in a primary process. That seems to be what David Pakman's stance is, and that seems to be a stance a lot of people in the Democratic Party have been taking. Just something to note there.
Yeah, and for me, part of the reasons why I'm not a Democrat is, 2016, 2020, and the shenanigans of 2024, with 2024 being the most obvious that they have shown in order to save democracy, they must crush democracy by showing to the world that the Republican Party, which is horrible, are more Democratic in their primaries than the Democrats. So, yeah, and I never blamed Robert Kennedy for running as an independent. And I'm more angry with him endorsing Trump. Excuse me, I'm more angry at him dropping out than I am endorsing Trump, because I want the goddamn two-party system to crash and burn in the dust heap of history. I think it's why this country is garbage. The fact that we have a two-party system. It is. And I think it's the only way we're going to get out of it if we have any hope of moving forward in this country. We need a uniform ranked choice voting system across the country. And, and at least Robert Kennedy was going to shake shit up a little bit. And I'm hoping Jill Stein, I'm hoping Chase Oliver, I'm hoping Cornel West and all other third parties will. But I don't know, but I think that Robert Kennedy was going to shake things up probably the most since H. Ross Perot in 1992 and 1996, and I, that's gone now. It looks like.
So let's just look at, a brief timeline here. So we have RFK enter the Democratic primary. He drops out of the Democratic primary, runs independent. We have a number of other people, as I just mentioned, enter the Democratic primary. They all got crushed. No debates for any of them.
Right.
They gave Joe Biden the nomination, pretty much ignoring the fact that he had 3-4 challengers at one point. That's irrelevant, because he's already the president. So why should anybody be allowed to challenge him in a primary? So, okay, let's just pretend that's democracy for a minute in the Democratic Party. So going through all of that, now we have Kamala basically being anointed the next candidate. So the Democratic Party handed it to Biden, then handed it to Kamala. And there were some within, I'm just doing this to highlight the undemocraticness of the Democratic Party really quickly. So then we had a number of people, even within the Democratic Party, calling for an open convention, saying, okay, you wouldn't let a primary come through. Let's let the delegates pick the candidate. No, we can't do that. Well, because Kamala is the vice president and she should obviously just be handed to her. So no, the delegates don't get to pick the candidate, even though that's what they're supposed to do. So we had that. They destroyed the last vestiges of democracy within the democratic process. So we went all the way up to this point. Now, RFK, let's look at RFK. RFK was meeting with people to be his vice president. We saw he met with, and this is important, we saw he met with former Governor Jesse Ventura. He did not give him the vice presidential slot. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, when I make another comment later, but he picked Nicole Shanahan. Now, Nicole Shanahan has a lot of money. She was married to a executive founder. I think it was the founder of Google or something like, I don't know if it's the founder of Google, but someone from Silicon Valley. And she ended up with a lot of money. The reason that he picked her over Jesse Ventura, because those were the top, I think Aaron Rodgers was in the consideration. The reason he picked her was because she's a very wealthy individual, and he was running out of money to get on ballots and to keep his campaign going. So now we've got to that point. What ends up happening is, and this is speculation, but look at it very closely. Nicole Shanahan just did a podcast appearance where she talked about how she felt like they weren't going to be able to win anymore. That's his number one donor, RFK, his vice president. So what it seems to me is that Nicole Shanahan, and I hope I'm getting her name right, I think I am, was no longer willing to provide funding for the campaign. She did donate $15 million, but I think that was the last of it. Now, without Nicole Shanahan's funding, without a way to raise small dollar donations, RFK really did not have a path forward. Now, we know he contacted Harris and Trump. Harris basically didn't even accept the meeting. Trump did. At first, didn't want to do it, whatever. I think that it's going to make a big difference in the race if RFK endorses Trump. I don't know how big of a difference, but I want to come back to Jesse Ventura for a minute. Interestingly enough, Jesse Ventura has basically thrown his support behind Kamala due to his relationship with Tim Walz. So these are two of the biggest independents getting involved in the presidential race. And Jesse's doesn't necessarily matter as much. And the reason for that is because he's not actively campaigning for Kamala. The question is going to be, is RFK going to actively campaign for Donald Trump? And I think that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, because Donald Trump's race is starting to look kind of doubtful for a while, but with a Robert Kennedy endorsement, that's going to be a boost to his campaign. But I always felt like Robert Kennedy running was not really, in a lot of ways, I kind of felt like it in a lot of ways, it wasn't really a spoiler race, because I mean, there are people who are like MAGA that may not like Trump on everything that found some kind of appeal, because the name Kennedy actually has some appeal to some conservatives, strangely enough. And then there are people who are attached to the name Kennedy who are like down the line Democrats, and so they're drawn to that race. And then you have an ideologically mixed group of people, weirdos, good weirdos and bad weirdos that are involved with Robert Kennedy. I mean, I love Dennis Kucinich, but he was like an early supporter of Robert Kennedy, and I consider him a good weirdo. And there were people like Alex Jones and people like that I consider like toxic weirdos that actually endorsed Robert Kennedy, believe it or not. So I mean, it's kind of like just kind of weird how things are going to turn out with this election.
Do you think that Kamala Harris made a mistake by declining Kennedy's meeting?
I do, but I know why she declined, and this is the problem with the Democratic Party. I have some ideological problems with Robert Kennedy. He appealed to me when I first heard he was running. I was like, holy cow. And I just assumed that he was going to be across the board progressive. Thanks to you. You told me some of the problems with Robert Kennedy. I was like, okay, let me back it up a bit. So actually, I thank you, Shane, for this. And then I found out some really more horrible things about Robert Kennedy. I found things out about Robert Kennedy that I really do like to this day. I mean, when Julian Assange was, in prison, he said he would give him a free him and give him a full pardon. And he would abolish the, abolish the Espionage Act of 1917. He was saying things like that. I'm middle of the road when it comes to vax issues. I'm not on the right, and I'm as milquetoast centrist when it comes to how to deal with the vax. And I think both sides were kind of, dumb, culture war ridden dumb. But as far as a lot of things, he was saying things that I felt like maybe some traditional Democrats should get back on board with. I like the fact it was for free speech, whereas a lot of Democrats don't really value that as much as they used to. But he took some right-wing positions too that I just could not go with. And so I'm just like, okay, I can't go there,
Right. So something else I mentioned earlier was that I said I'd come back to, and I want to see what you think about this, is all the people he met with for his vice president, one of them being Jesse Ventura. In my opinion, picking Nicole Shanahan might have been a strategic decision due to money, but that money runs out the second she decides she wants to stop funding the campaign. As we're seeing, she donated $15 million. It looks like he's going to drop out, so I'm assuming there's no more money. Jesse Ventura is different. Jesse Ventura appeals to a very large swath of people. He's beaten the duopoly twice as a mayor and as a governor, and he's someone who could have actually helped RFK do small dollar fundraising effectively, and he wouldn't have necessarily had to worry about being beholden to his vice president and whether or not she was going to continue funding the campaign or not, and might have still been able to keep going by doing rallies with Jesse. Just a thought.
And
made a mistake.
For someone like me, the appeal of Jesse Ventura is that Jesse Ventura is to the left of Robert F. Kennedy. I mean, even prior to the Trump endorsement, going back a year and a half, whenever he decided to run, he is significantly more anti-capitalist than he's been in the past, and he's been very good across the board on a lot of issues. I'm disappointed by his endorsement of Kamala Harris, and I actually got a video on that too as well. Thing about it is, he could have probably pushed Kennedy on some issues further left. Maybe not in every issue, but maybe he could have pushed them on a couple of issues further left. And I've, as I said, maybe I like on some foreign policies. I forgot to mention, while he's correct on Ukraine, Kennedy's, very wrong on Israel Palestine too. And so maybe Jesse Ventura can kind of push him in a more positive direction on foreign policy if he would have been the running mate. Of course, it's all academic now. There was talk about Tulsi Gabbard being Robert Kennedy's running mate too, by the way.
Oh yes, I remember that too.
Yeah, and I actually predicted that could have happened, but that prediction didn't come through.
The thing, with RFK is he's a mixed bag. He's really good on environmental issues. That's the only thing I can say without, I can say that he's good on environmental issues. I don't, I think that when it comes to economics on some issues, he's really bad. He doesn't understand how things work. So he was running like a reduce the debt kind of campaign because he doesn't understand the MMT there. He doesn't understand that if he actually reduces the debt in the way he's talking about, he'll literally kill the private sector. And he doesn't understand that. Nobody's explained it to him. So there's some things he's really good on. There's some things he's really bad on, but he might be bad on that because he just doesn't understand it. But he would have definitely shook up the primaries, but not the general. But he's that would also have if he could get ballot access in enough states for it to make a difference. And what we have to remember is debates. How did let's look at Jesse Ventura for a minute. How did Jesse Ventura win the governorship? He was included in the debates. RFK hasn't been included in a single debate thus far. I mean, there's only been a single debate thus far, but they moved the goalposts. They said you have to qualify on this many ballots in order to enter the debate. But the date to qualify on those ballots wasn't until after the date of the debate. So look at that. Look what they do there.
Yeah, they don't plan to have a third-party candidate in the presidential debates again after
Ross
Perot back in '92.
Yeah.
And honestly, people want to see more than two boring white men in suits. Of course, I mean, it won't be, it would be an orange man and a light complexion African American woman this time. However, still, we're talking about just establishment people,
right?
And and they both represent the establishment. And yes, some people, I have to tell this to MAGA, Donald Trump represents the establishment more than he lets on. So look at all his friends in the past. That's all you need to know. You look at his friends in the past. So yeah, as I said, I'm more angry that he dropped out than his endorsement of Trump. I'm not exactly popping champagne corks either way. I mean, if he would have been for Kamala Harris or Trump, honestly, but I'm more angry that he dropped out because, as I said, and I say this figuratively about the two-party system. I wanted to crash and burn. I more than anything else now. I mean, I am tired of the two-party system. I want it to crash and burn. I want the two-party system gone, and I want a multi-party system. That's what I want. And and we're going to just flush down the toilet if we keep the two-party system intact. Yeah. So
now, and one more thing about Jesse, or two more things about Jesse, and one more thing about Kamala. One more thing about RFK. So RFK, in regards to Kamala was being, like Kamala or not, she was being stupid by not meeting with RFK, because if she would have met with RFK and made a deal with RFK, she could have had his endorsement, give him some kind of cabinet position. She could have had that endorsement, and that would have made some of the voting bloc that he was taking from Trump possibly, even think about Kamala. But the thing is, she doesn't know how to run a campaign. You have to remember, she couldn't even beat Tulsi in the primaries in 2020. The front runners the whole time were Warren, Bernie, and Biden. At different points, it was different one of them. But she couldn't even get into the top 3 during the primaries. I've won as many primaries as Kamala Harris has. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Everybody's celebrating, and on the Democratic side, but it's not a done deal. It's not a sealed done deal, and that's things can change in a drop of a hat. We saw Trump getting we saw the assassination attempt, and we saw what could have almost looked like a Reagan style 49 state landslide ready to happen in November. I wouldn't have been like that, but it would have been a bloodbath for the Democrats. And then Biden dropping out, there was a little bit of momentum and everything, and that's going to die down too. So they're high off the convention right now, and the campaign's going to continue, and we'll see how things go. It's going to go up and down, and honestly, we don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, anybody who are going to predict the outcome, they're out to lunch, because anything can happen between now and on election day. So I guess we should go with the next story of Jesse Ventura, since we were talking about him. So Jesse Ventura. This is from Due Dissonance, and they talked about it. So we'll get started.
Alrighty, folks. I have followed the career of Jesse Ventura for a long time. Author of the most famous book he wrote was probably Democrips and Republicans, No More Gangs in Government. And he was always a staunch independent. He was very stubborn in his refusal to endorse any duopoly candidates. As a matter of fact, in 2016, he offered his endorsement to Bernie Sanders under the condition that Bernie not endorse Hillary if and when he lost the nomination. And Bernie blew him off, did not make any such promise. And so Ventura said, if I can't trust you not to fold in the general election, should you lose the nomination, then I'm not going to be able to endorse your run. And I thought that was admirable. And I've always found Jesse Ventura to be quite admirable, if not a bit of a softie at certain points. And so that's why actually this is not as surprising to me as it is to some people, but we'll talk about it after. Here he is giving his endorsements to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
I'm going to be selfish. A few years ago, I got the opportunity to see the United States elect its first black president. I didn't think that could ever happen. And they even reelected him. Well, now I'm going to be selfish again. I've only got a few elections to go. I'm 73 years old now, so the window's closing. I want to be alive to see the first woman president of the United States of America and the first woman commander-in-chief, and we've got her right now.
I've always been a pound.
Your views.
That was my nickname in the service, Poon Chaser. So I want to see pussy up in that Oval Office there. And I have it on very reliable information that she's got one. I've heard it from a lot of people, and I'm not going to get into details there. A lot of people who can verify that if Kamala Harris is the president, there will be pussy up in that White House.
Yeah, you should have said that. That would have been great TV.
On this issue, I think a lot of people have been very interested to hear what you have said. So you are officially endorsing the Harris Walz ticket, excuse me.
Yes, I want to see a woman president. It's time for a woman president. We men have screwed it up enough. And
okay. All right. So that's the bit of sound that went kind of viral. And, a lot of people are shocked by this because,
I have to interrupt this for a second because I'm just going to say what is obvious. To me, I think the policy matters, not identity and not gender. Now, voting against somebody because of their identity and gender is fucked up and wrong, but voting for somebody because of their identity and gender is also wrong. You want good people, and you can find good people regardless of gender and identity. That's where I stand. And as far as men screwing things up, well, Margaret Thatcher didn't do a good job running Great Britain, and I wouldn't want Marjorie Taylor Greene in the White House. So, any thoughts on that, Shane?
So yes, I agree with you there. I do understand his sentiment of wanting to see a woman president. I get that. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing to want. I think the policies should matter, etc. Jesse's done, the one they're playing is the CNN one. Jesse's done maybe 3-4 appearances since Tim Walz was picked for the VP. I don't know if you've seen all of those. There was the MSNBC one with Al Sharpton. Have you seen that one?
I haven't.
Okay. So in that one, it gives the indication that he's endorsed the ticket more so for Tim Walz than he has for Kamala, because he talks about how when Tim Walz became governor of Minnesota, he called Jesse and asked him to come in and ask for his advice, and he appreciated that. And then he talks about how when Tim Walz signed the ending the prohibition of marijuana in Minnesota, how he called Jesse and said, "Hey, you started this all these years ago. You need to be in my office at 11 a.m. in order to be here when I sign it, because this is really you. I just pushed it forward." So he has a lot of respect for Tim Walz, and I understand that, considering how Tim Walz has treated him, and considering, look, and I'll say this: do I think Tim Walz is the best there is? Do I think he's Bernie Sanders 2.0 like some people are saying? No. Do I think Tim Walz is progressive? In the context of the Democratic Party of Minnesota, he does qualify as progressive. Now, the thing about Minnesota is their Democrats are actually further, except for Amy Klobuchar, their Democrats are further left than most of the Democrats in the country. Not Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah, they even have a better statewide name, Democratic Farmer Labor Party.
They do. And Tim Walz did the free school lunch and breakfast for the kids in the schools. He ended the prohibition of marijuana. And he gave Jesse Ventura credit for starting that. Tim Walz is not a bad guy. He's definitely progressive. But also something to remember is he was in Congress first, and he never signed on to Bernie's, or it would have been Jayapal in the House. He never signed on to Jayapal's Medicare for All bill. So that's something to point out. Whether he's progressive on other issues, he never signed on to the universal health care bill in the House when he was in Congress. He never did.
I just assumed he would have.
A lot of people did, but he didn't. He never signed on to it.
That makes a difference.
It makes a difference. Look, it's important because Kamala Harris signed on to it, but she didn't do it until late. But she hasn't pushed that policy at all in her campaign. I think she did at some point in the primaries. So it doesn't always matter whether you sign on to it. The other Kennedy, Joe Kennedy, when he was running against Ed Markey, made sure he signed on to it before that election, just so he could say he signed on to it. So signing on to it doesn't always mean anything. But he didn't even sign on to it. He hasn't talked about universal health care. He's progressive on a number of other issues. He's not necessarily I don't think I'm going to vote for the Harris Walz ticket. I'm probably personally going to vote for Jill Stein. I think she's on the ballot in my state, or will be. I know the Green Party here. They've got the signatures, whatever, to get her on the ballot. But Walz is a progressive to an extent. Not necessarily good enough because of the universal health care So give him his criticism on that. But the other thing you have to remember is who is at the top of the ticket? Is it Kamala Harris or is it Tim Walz? It's not Tim Walz on the top of the ticket. It's Kamala Harris, who, by the way, doesn't have a single policy. I don't even think she has a website up yet. And if she does, there's almost nothing on there. Because the last I checked, there was no Harris for President website with no policies. When asked, go ahead.
As I said, I just assumed everything I was hearing about Minnesota for the longest time. And I was told people, as disappointed as I was with the squad, I said if I had to make an argument for the Democrats, I would look at the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota with the 1-seat majority and Governor Tim Walz. It sounds like yeah, and I know I've actually said he was the Bernie Sanders in Minnesota, joking, kind of exaggerating to make a point. I know he's not quite Bernie Sanders. I definitely know for what you told me about Medicare for All. Now, I just assumed he was for Medicare for All. However, thing about it is that I mean, I found out things about Tim Walz that I'm not too keen on. So as I said, I mean, it's a wash. And even as the VP, if they're elected, who's to say that, I mean, that he's going to push Kamala Harris to the left? I don't think that he will be able to. And she's not even discussing Medicare for All anymore. Not one bit.
She's not. And when I was watching your show the other day, I made a point in the chat, which I think is relevant here, and I'm trying to remember exactly how I worded it. I think that you could argue, the word progressive is thrown around, but if you want to use the word, as in for certain issues, and not to say whether somebody's a fighter or not. And this is going to be controversial for me to say. I'm going to say it anyway. I think you could make the argument that AOC is progressive. I think you can make the argument that Elizabeth Warren is progressive. Bernie Sanders. Can you make the argument that they're fighters? No, because they don't fight. But can you make the argument that in theory they believe in the right things? Yes. With Kamala Harris, and I only threw Elizabeth Warren in there because she actually has the record prior to being a senator where she did the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that a lot of people don't remember. That helped. She forced Obama to do it, and she shamed him, by the way, on MSNBC and CNN until he did it. But, when she got in the Senate, no fight. All her fight went out, seems to be. It seems when all these activists get in the Senate, all their fight, or in Congress, all their fight comes out of them. Just an observation. But the point I was going to make is, if you just want to look at records and what bills people have signed on to and what they're in favor of in theory, you can make the arguments that those are progressives. When it comes to Kamala Harris, there's really not much to look at. You can look at her record as a prosecutor. That's terrible. That's abysmal. So you can say, keeping people in jail past their dates, withholding evidence until she was forced to turn it over for people on death row. That's abysmal. You can say her prosecutorial record is abysmal. She really didn't do that much in the Senate, honestly. She didn't talk about things until she was trying to compete with Sanders and Warren on Medicare for All, and then added it to her platform later in the primary. You can't really argue that she's a progressive in any context. Like I said, you can make some arguments for some of those Democrats that I just mentioned. I don't see how anyone's making the argument that Kamala is progressive, even in that context. I'm just saying.
No, not at all. I knew from day one she was a corporate Democrat, there were Democrats running. I mean, Michael Bloomberg, for example, obviously to her right. I mean, and there was like a couple other folks that might have been slightly to her right and Joe Biden's right, but I mean, they were considered jokes and dropped out pretty quickly. And
Michael Bennett and people like that, yeah.
Michael Bloomberg. Now, of all of them that ran, I think that Michael Bloomberg is probably the one I probably despise the most. Not that I'm defending Bernie Sanders now, but the one commercial he did running, he didn't do it attacking Trump as a primary candidate. He went there to attack Bernie Sanders supporters. I was thinking, you son of a like, I mean, it's just like at that time he was attacking me. He was, I'm sure he was attacking most of us at that time, and I was just like, I was like, and if he gets the nomination, it's like, does he expect me to support him? Oh, fuck that guy. So anyway, yeah, I'm disappointed with Jesse Ventura, and the thing about it is not any hidden misogyny on my part or what have you. I have voted for women running for office. I would love to see a female president. I have voted for women running for president. I voted for Jill Stein in 2016, and I'm now that Cornel West is on the ballot in North Carolina, and I'm going to do a video quick on that in a few moments. I'm kind of distraught whether to vote for Jill Stein or Cornel West. I like them both. I do like them both, and I'm sort of like, because when he announced last year, I was like, okay, I'm getting on board with Cornel West, and then I know what happened with Peter Dow, and I will forever despise Peter Dow for what he did, because I would have loved nothing better than to see Cornel West and Jill Stein team up. Two strong people to run as the Green Party candidate for president. So I guess let me go ahead and play that Cornel West video. Let me find it real quick. Yeah, right here we go.
It's a good day. Landmark decision, part of the legacy of this great campaign, with all the magnificent, hard-working volunteers doing what? Gaining access to the ballot in North Carolina with the U.S. judiciary, the courts saying free speech. First Amendment, we have a right to raise our voices, and beyond that saying there's a pattern of attacking us, a pattern of assaulting us, and if they do it again, it will be a contempt of court. That's what we're talking about today in terms of gaining access to the ballot in North Carolina. North Carolina is the land, the state of John Coltrane himself. And for this campaign of truth, justice, and love a love supreme is stronger than ever. And I want to salute from the depths of my heart my dear brother Michael, who worked so very hard for us. My dear brother Oliver, who stepped in and defended us. And brother Italo, head of Justice for All Party in North Carolina, who sacrificed so much for us. Yes, we are on the move.
Yeah. Any thoughts about Cornel West running?
So with Cornel West, I was actually really excited when I saw him running and he was going to try to get the Green nomination. And looking at that, you know, and I'm not going to say too much because I know a lot of insider stuff about the Green Party. But what I will say is there are two major factions in the Green Party, just so everybody understands. There's only two right now. There's the Jill Stein faction and there's the Howie Hawkins faction. Both and it's not because Jill Stein and Howie Hawkins don't like each other. It's they're people who don't necessarily get along because they're actually friendly from what I understand. And I know them, you know, whatever, but there's two factions. This is a little bit of insider stuff I'm going to share with everybody. When Cornel West decided he wanted to run for the Green Party nomination, he met with both of them. And he had the support from both Jill and Howie, as well as their people. He could have united the Green Party, and he had that opportunity. He also did not have the ability to necessarily get ballot access running as an independent. As you see, he just got on your ballot, but he's struggling. Hold on one second.
Okay. Yeah, I do know Howie Hawkins, and I voted for him in 2020. But anyway, I was just kind of pausing while you were pausing, kind of filling in. Okay, as you were saying.
Oh, yes. So he had the ability to unite the two major factions of the Green Party. And he didn't take that opportunity to do that. He didn't take the Stein network, which would have gotten him his ballot access, along with the Howie network that would have helped with that. He decided to run independent. For whatever reason, he did that. I think that was a mistake on his part. I think he should have kept with the Green Party, kept with those, the support from Jill and Howie, and used that to unite the party, get the nomination, and possibly, run a really strong campaign. I have no issue with Cornel West. I really like Cornel West. But I think he made a strategic error because also remember, he was going to run with the People's Party. And that was a mess. See, Cornel West came out strong, saying he was going to run with the People's Party. I don't think he really knew what was going on with the People's Party, even though he was on their advisory committee. A lot of the advisors didn't know what was going on with Nick Brana and the People's Party. But how does this look to you? A, it's hard enough to run as a third-party candidate, but looking at it from the outside, you see, first I'm running with the People's Party, now I'm running with the Green Party, now I'm running independent. How does that really look? Like, honestly.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I know it was Chris Hedges that encouraged him to go into the Green Party, which was a very smart move. And that's nothing against the People's Party. I got nothing but love for all the left wing third parties out there, and I was majorly involved. I'm sure you've heard of the Socialist Party USA. Howie Hawkins is a member of the Socialist Party USA. Yeah, I know Howie Hawkins.
I do
we
too.
Never, we don't know each other extremely well, but we know of each other because I was very involved with the SPUSA years ago, and so thing about it is that with regard to third parties, there's a lot of drama, a lot of hard street work you have to do, and having to deal with them both, and having to deal with egos too. I mean, and I've been, as I said, I've been in that hornet's nest myself in the leadership. So I hate the fact that that Cornel West decided to go in it on his own, because this kind of just further divides the left. I mean, this is an opportunity. This was a major opportunity. And I have a theory about Cornel West too. And I would like to share with you. I think that Cornel West is a little worried that he could spoil the race and be blamed and become another Ralph Nader in the eyes of many people, and he'll lose respect among people in progressive circles, or in the Democratic Party. Some of the people who tolerates the left-wing politics, they'll be looking at him and like he's no different from those Bernie bros, which I guess he wasn't Bernie bro in 2016, 2020. But the thing is that I think that he was worried about his legacy in that regard. So I think that he figures that running as an independent, he was still be noted as running as a third-party candidate, but probably not going to get the public relations pushback because of the third party movement. But I fear for him that if Donald Trump wins this election, they will do just that. They will blame him. They will blame Joe Stein. They will blame Chase Oliver. They would blame everybody that you could have. They will even blame Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips or and Shank Uger. How dare you go and challenge Joe Biden, who's not even the nominee, who didn't even get the nomination? They're going to try to find everybody to blame but themselves for the Democrats losing in November, if that's exactly what happened. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's kind of how I see it, seeing it. So I think that that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that he's worried about about his reputation. Oh, I think we lost him. Okay, so he'll probably be back in a moment. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen with regard to Cornel West running, and not worry about the pushback. What's going to, with regard to the election results and all of that. So I am going to wait till he gets back, and we'll see. We'll try to get on with let's go with a rather short story here, if we can. And let's go ahead and do this. I know we're going to be talking about the duopoly a little bit with this, but we'll go ahead and do this. Down in Florida, in the 25th congressional district, Jen Perlman and Debbie Wasserman Schultz faced each other. Okay, hold on a second. I think he's back.
So
Okay, well,
my internet went out. I'm on my phone. Hopefully the sound is okay.
Oh, you sound great. Look, I was just saying, I think that he's going to end up worrying about becoming another Ralph Nader. That's what I was saying in a nutshell.
I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that. Hold on, I'm going to switch to my computer now that the Wi-Fi is back. Can you move me from the? Yeah.
Oh, what happened? Oh. Okay. I guess. Oh, I think he wants me to remove him. So I'll wait for him to come back. Okay. Okay. Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My equipment decided not to work today.
Oh, that's okay. I had a connect issue a couple of days ago, so don't feel bad. I had a connection issue.
I'm gonna say, yeah. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that he may have been afraid of that. I think he should have embraced it. Remember, oh, my computer's working now.
Okay, I can go ahead and do this. Give me a moment.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back again.
Thank you. Do you remember a presidential candidate by the name of Eugene Debs?
Very much so. Yep. Remember, I used to be a member of the Socialist Party USA.
Do you know what he ran? First of all, he ran from prison, but do you know what he did? He ran for office, and he forced the Democrat, I think it might have been the Democratic Party, he forced the Democratic Party to accept some of his issues by being a thorn in their side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He did.
Him and Norman
You don't have
Thomas.
to win as a third. Mm-hmm. Who'd you say?
Norman Thomas, his successor, same thing.
He did. You don't have to win as a third party candidate in order to enact change. It would be nice. It's better if you do. Minnesota has weed parties, by the way. They didn't win the election, but they got enough of the vote where some Democrats actually lost their seats. And then what did the Democratic, and I'm not saying this is the entire reason why, but what did the Democratic electorate in Minnesota, not electorate, the Democratic government in Minnesota do when they lost some of their seats because of weed party? They legalized marijuana. They did. Because you have power if you're running as a third party candidate and you take enough votes away from your party, you may not get elected. But if you can be the reason that they lose some of their seats or that they're going to lose an election, they will accept your issues because now you've forced them to. So Cornel West could have been the one who said, listen, I have 20% of the electorate. Let's be generous. Let's say 10%. He could say I have 10% of the electorate behind me. And he could have forced through. And maybe he's the reason that the Democrats don't win, or that they win by such a slim margin. And now they have to listen to Cornel West's little voting block there, if he was running with the Greens. Now they have to say, why did we lose all these voters? What was Cornel West offering that we weren't? They can't be like, Jill Stein made Hillary lose the election. They can do that with Jill Stein in 2016 only because it was a small percent of the voting block, and they can make that argument, even though that argument is bullshit. Just so you know, most of those people wouldn't have even voted. But what if Jill Stein had 20% of the vote? Now they have to find out why Jill Stein had 20% of the vote, and the same thing would have been with Cornel West. It's a different situation when it's just not just a few points, and it's a large amount of points.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, I love to think that the Democrats would be that logical, but they would just go for the right instead, and just punish the left and punch left because they're more busy. They're busier, and bad grammar on my part. They're busier trying to suck up to the Lincoln Project Republicans and saying, George W. Bush, he's a good guy now, and Liz Cheney, and you had Rob Reiner saying that he would love to see Liz Cheney running for president to challenge Trump one of these days or something like that. That was a couple of years ago. He said that. I'm just like, oh my God. So, and Jimmy Dore once said that liberals hated Ralph Nader because he supposedly gave us George W. Bush, but now that the liberals love George W. Bush, they still end up hating Ralph Nader. So, I would love to think that this country, the people in this country are logical, but they're not in a lot of cases. But
they're not.
Yeah. But I'll go by this Eugene Debs quote when he said in 1908, I'd rather vote for what I want and not get it than to vote for what I don't want and end up getting it. And too many Americans end up voting for what they don't want and ended up getting it.
Exactly. I think, to connect this with our earlier conversation about Jesse Ventura, to connect it to the Cornel West, I think Cornel West would have done okay if he was the Green Party candidate. I think if Jesse Ventura was the Green Party candidate, he could actually win an election. I think that's crazy to say, but if he had ballot access and he was the Green Party candidate, I think he could actually win an election, which, I think he could. I think he could push his way through if he got on the debate stage, if he had the ballot access. I think he's someone who could actually force his way through because he's done it before. No one else can say they've done it before.
I remember when Jesse Ventura got elected as governor of Minnesota, everybody was shocked. And I mean, one of my friends said, man, that's fucked up. I mean, I wasn't particularly excited by it. I mean, I was excited that he broke through the two-party system, but I was like Reform Party, thinking, well, that's not exactly my cup of tea ideologically at the time. But it was just kind of like, but at least he broke through it. And I was always happy about that. And then later on, he started to surprise me for the better. And a friend of mine that lives in Minnesota at the time, a lefty who didn't vote for him in 1998, ended up really liking him later on because of some things he did as the governor. So
the thing thing about Jesse Ventura is he can change his mind when he's presented with new information. So when he was running for governor, he was not for raising the minimum wage in Minnesota because he believed the federal government would continue to raise the minimum wage at a reasonable amount of time, and the states wouldn't have to do it themselves. And then he saw what actually happened, that the federal government did not continue to raise the minimum wage at a reasonable amount of time. So then he changed his position and said, yes, the state should get involved and raise the minimum wage because the federal government did not do their job in that case.
Right.
I'm going to say, do you mind if I share something just for some context on Jesse Ventura?
Sure thing.
Okay, let me see if I can do it.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and pause here on Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Jen Perlman. I want to mention them in a moment. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we can do that. Oh, hold on a second here. Oh, I'm seeing Shane Coughlin, another Shane Coughlin on the window here.
So in 2020, there was actually a movement to draft Jesse. I don't know if anybody remembers that. There was a movement to draft Jesse, and it was a little campaign that was put together called People for Jesse. And he knew about it. You know, he was polling at 18% without being a candidate. He actually talked about it a couple of times. He didn't end up doing it for a number of reasons, but this was the ad they put out when they were trying to get him the Green nomination. I just want to, give a little context on Jesse. This might actually help, and then show what policies he stands for and stuff, because I don't remember. So this was the ad.
And I'll tell you something else, honestly. Before I put my butt on the line, this country better show me it's worth it. We got to think revolutionary. You got to be ready to elect Che Guevara. Because I will change things if I won.
We need a single-payer, government-run healthcare.
It's a human right. If you're sick, you should be able to go to the doctor. If we weren't spending all our money on these wars, we could have healthcare 3 times over. Health should not be for profit. Everybody in this country deserves the same healthcare that Congress would get. They should be no better or no worse than us. After all, don't they work for us? I would start a war on the climate and a war on pollution. I'm watching the oceans die before my very eyes. I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. If the oceans die, we die. The basic 4 years should be free, so we now pay from kindergarten through 4 years of college. We can do that if we get out of the wars. I'll support that. If we guarantee we get out of wars, the result will be free college. The state of our country today, we're in a mess. And who is to blame? The Democrats and the Republicans. They have been in charge for my entire life. How can we take our country back today? Simple. Stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. We must, this election, elect an independent. Will you agree we're polarized? The worst we've been probably since the Civil War, I would imagine. Well, if you elect a Dem or Repub, the polarization is going to continue. The only way the country's going to get reunited is to elect an independent president.
So then do you feel a need to do it in order to serve your country?
I have that voice in the back of my head that says to me, if not you, then who? It's there. If they got the frickin' guts to let me in a debate, I'll come in and destroy their 2 candidates and steal the election in November, just like I did in Minnesota.
Ventura being declared the winner. First he was Jesse the Body Ventura, then he was Jesse the Mind, and now he's Jesse the Governor.
If the Greens come back to me in the end of July and say, you're my man, if it becomes brokered, I won't shut the door.
Well, That's a very good commercial. I know he would have my support. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what he didn't run? Well, A, because they couldn't get the Green Party together, but B, because if he would have run, he would have lost his health care that was connected to his job. So just another indication of tying healthcare to employment and why it's bad.
It's so sad that this COVID that we dealt with in 2020 provided all the proof that we need to establish a Medicare for all single payer system, and yet they're not even trying to fight for a public option or anything, not or any meaningful prescription drug reforms or anything like that. Not at all.
They did negotiate a whole 10 drug prices.
Okay, well, I guess something. Yeah.
A whole 10 drug.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, just the fact that I mean, we're the laughing stock of the world. The fact that we don't have a system, like other countries, not just democratic Western nations, but even developing nations around the world that have better healthcare systems with better outcomes than we have. And and the fact that we can't have it, but we'll go and we'll invade Iraq, we'll invade Afghanistan, provide them free healthcare, give them create a single payer system for them. Everything that's wrong with Israel, I mean, they do have universal healthcare going for them, and thanks to the billions that we give to them, but we can't afford it here in the United States. I mean, that's the thing that I don't get. I mean, this country, but anyway, I don't know. Shall we go with the next story?
Sure. What's the next story?
I want to discuss the race down in Florida this past Tuesday between Jen Perlman and the evil Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And I'm going to sound very terrible. Is you combine Chelsea Clinton with a Cocker Spaniel dog, you will have Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I mean, one of the most right-wing corporate Democrats you could imagine, and it was brutal. Her defeat. I mean, she thought she had a chance to. She thought there was a window to defeat Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and there was a lot of hype that was going on, and I'll share the article on the 25th congressional district race, because I was curious of the outcome of how that of its outcome. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I saw it right here. Here we go. Right here, Florida. This is from the New York Times. Florida 25th congressional district primary election results. And here we go with Debbie Wasserman Schultz getting 83.2% of the vote versus Jen Perlman's 16.8%. And and they found they thought they had a window where they could theoretically defeat Debbie Wasserman Schultz because it became a more diverse congressional district. It was, I mean, it was just there were things that kind of looked favorable to her winning, but it just didn't work out. So so anyway, one of the few Democrats that I do respect and all of that, and just kind of sad to see that happen to her, to her race, losing like that.
She got crushed.
Yeah. So I haven't really heard too much from the program in the last few days. So I think that they're kind of devastated, and I would be too. But but Debbie Wasserman Schultz she's a I mean, she's a terrible person. I mean, she's one of the worst Democrats out there. I mean, authoritarian as hell. You know, she's basically she's basically Joe Lieberman, the late Joe Lieberman, in a female pantsuit. I don't know if you remember Joe Lieberman of Connecticut. Yeah, that's why.
Barack Obama's mentor, Mr. Progressive's mentor.
The man that destroyed the Obamacare, the prevented a public option. You know,
He did. You know, I love when people would say that Barack Obama is a progressive. I would just be like, you know, his mentor was Joe Lieberman, right?
Yeah, actually, I did not know that Joe Lieberman was his mentor, but now that I know, I have less respect for him. So, anyway,
probably APAC, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, APAC propped up Debbie Wasserman Schultz, obviously. So there we go. Let's see here. I guess we'll go with let's see what other story we can go with. Hold on a second here.
No, I was really hoping that Jen Perlman could knock out Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'm sick of really stupid Debbie Wasserman Schultz commercials.
Yeah, I despise Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I call her Hurricane Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Yeah. We were talking about Cornel West earlier, so I did a video last week.
Yeah.
Under the misimpression that Nora Ericott was going to be Jill Stein's running mate. So I want to make the disclaimer, and I'm probably going to do a video making the disclaimer. I took down the video because the way I work graveyard shift, the way I was interpreting it, that was going to be her running mate. But apparently that is not her running mate as it stands. So Butch Ware, I believe, is her running mate. So yeah, so here's a quick commercial, a quick video from Forbes. So Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein selects the running mate and is Butch Hare. And so what's interesting about it is, you know, while they're referring to the Kamala Harris campaign as, you know, they're trying to say that is they're resorting to bigotry with regard to the Kamala Harris campaign, saying that there's too much Middle Eastern connection with regard to the Palestinians and the Arab cause or what have you. I think it's cool that Jill Stein chose, you know, an Arab, a Muslim as a running mate to pair a Jewish voice for peace and an Arab voice for peace to this country, to show that there's a better way than the two main candidates that they're offering, Zionism, straight up Zionism. It's not even the good cop liberal Zionism of years past that's even being offered now. It's just the fascism of Benjamin Netanyahu, and Donald Trump is promising to suck up to him even more and accusing Kamala Harris of not sucking up to him enough. I mean, and I think that the Biden and Harris administration has gone way overboard to coddle Israel and what they're doing since October 7th and what they were doing previous to October 7th. So, any thoughts on this campaign in connection to the Israeli-Palestinian issue?
So I'm going to try to comment on this without giving away too much insider information from the Green Party that I unfortunately have. So let me see how I want to phrase this. I think that they did pick a really good vice presidential candidate. I do like that. But I think the Green Party were missing the bigger picture because they were looking for, you could tell from the outset that the presidential candidate they picked doesn't have any real name recognition. They're not super strong. He might be a really good candidate, but He doesn't have the name recognition. He's not going to be able to help much with fundraising beyond their circles, and they really need money, that campaign. I think that they made an identity choice for their candidate because I think they wanted to make sure they went with a someone from that ethnic group, considering what's going on, rather than picking the strongest, most powerful name recognition candidate. But I do really like him, despite all that. But I think that if they wanted to win, or even get to that 5%, they should have picked a stronger vice presidential candidate.
Yeah, well, I thought it was an interesting choice, and I hope that she's going to do well. I think that she could potentially take some votes in Michigan, where there's a lot of this has the highest concentration of Arabic and Muslim voters in the country, and having to tell people that some people always conflate Arabic and Muslim as one of the same. It's like, no. There are Arab Christians too. So and they as well have a stake in what's going on in with Palestine, because some of the people in Palestine, they're being butchered by the IDF, are also Christian Palestinians. So, and I like to know where the evangelicals stand on that, when babies are being blown up and Christians are being blown up in Gaza. But I guess it doesn't count when John Hagee and these evangelicals, who really deep down hate Jews as much as they hate the Muslims, because they want to rush in the end times, think that they have to go and commit the one acceptable act of sodomy and suck on Benjamin Netanyahu's cock. So, I'm not a very politically correct person, as you can tell.
Yes,
but anyway, so, as I said, I just watching this whole thing and seeing how people have become, big time hypocrites too, in this country. I never want to hear another pro-lifer lecture me about abortion again, because I will shut them down about the baby parts I see in Gaza. When it's just sickening seeing that on the computer, on Twitter. I guess on Twitter is the only place you can really see that and everything. And unfortunately, I have to. It's unfortunate. Is a necessary evil to see it, because it's the only way you're going to turn public opinion on this issue.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think you're absolutely right, and I think that they need to highlight the issues in Gaza. So in that case, it's a good ticket. But like I said, I think that third parties need to be very, very strategic with how they play their games, and because they're completely shut out of everything. So, and I'm also wondering why Jill Stein this time around, and I don't know if you remember last time around in 2016 that she ran anyway. Not last time around, but the last time she ran, that she had a shadow cabinet. So she actually picked out her entire cabinet and was running, letting everybody know who was going to be in her cabinet. I don't think she actually did that this time. I think she should have done that. By the way, her cabinet was excellent, and I can't remember who was in it, but much better than the cabinet Hillary Clinton had picked out for when she thought she was going to win. But that's a given.
Yeah, we were actually going to do that in 2000 with the Socialist Party, have a shadow cabinet I think we were planning to have it on a C-SPAN of all the people we were going to have introduced to what positions in government and everything, including people that would have never heard of us. But I guess that they decided not to go with that plan. But I think it's a good idea. Any third party running to have a shadow cabinet positions, kind of illustrating a program of what you're going to do, what you can do with your department, and showing to people how government can work for the better for on behalf of people, So I guess we'll go with let's see, here we go with I guess we'll probably go with we're kind of running short on time here, but I would say we should go with this with the Kamala Harris speech at the convention. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just a portion of it. So let me go ahead and do this, and I'm going to run to the bathroom while this is playing. I will be right back too. So, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be right back in a moment.
And it was close to a home run. The Gaza part was a little mediocre. We'll explain that in a minute, maybe less than mediocre. But maybe it's inside the ballpark home run. And so every other part of the speech was nearly pitch perfect. So we're going to break it down for you guys. First of all, a lot of politicians give pokey speeches about only in America, etc. But the fact that she lived that life makes it so much more real. Right. So when Bill Clinton says only in America, and yeah, he was poor and grew up poor in Arkansas, et cetera, there's truth to that. There's reality to that. Right. When Donald Trump says only in America, you're like, well, no, actually, you could be born incredibly rich in Malaysia, in France, in so many other countries, and then you'll have the same exact advantages. Right. But when your mom comes from India and your dad comes from Jamaica, and then you're middle class here and you grow up to run for president, become vice president, and run for president of the United States. It goes to the strength and the beauty of this country. That's why my family came. Because you go to any other country, you ain't gonna be president. You ain't gonna be their leader, okay? Maybe you could get by, maybe you could do a lot of things, but you can't do that. And that's what's awesome about America, and that's what Trump and the Republicans don't understand. This country isn't great because of the particular people that happen to be born here at any different time. It's great because the whole world believes in it. The whole world believes in the American dream and the opportunity. And they send the best of us, right, throughout the world here, and then get to a situation like that. And she delivered that story really effectively and made people believe and made me believe. And because it's true that that's the life that she lived. And that's why she loves this country and wants to stick up for this country. And her story is the one that shows, among others, that anything is possible because it just happened for her family. Okay, now when she talked about different experiences that she had in her life, she was a prosecutor. Now you could say, hey, you know what? She was a tough prosecutor in a lot of ways, went after a lot of bad guys and had very harsh sentences for people who committed significant crimes, right?
Yeah.
And then she did some reforms, and people can look at that and go, oh, she's trying to have it both ways. And, she's a politician trying to put her finger in the wind and, oh, is it going this way, or is it going that way? I'll give you a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Or you could look at it and go, well, that's kind of balanced. That's what you should do. You should throw the book at the people who are terrible people and bad guys, et cetera, keep everybody safe. And then for the people who had minor offenses, she like minor drug offenses, she would bring them into rehab, and she made a strong effort to bring them into rehab and demanded that there be money to bring them into rehab.
Yep.
There's an excellent case to be made that that's balanced.
I remember specifically noting that I wanted her to lean into her past as a prosecutor because I feel that it is important as a national level leader to talk about the importance of public safety and prosecuting specifically violent criminals, rapists, okay, sexual predators, people who commit murder. And I'm really happy she did that. And it's important that she did that, not only for my own purposes, how important I find public safety, but because, listen, if she's going to move forward with this framing of I am a prosecutor, Donald Trump is the criminal, well, then you need to placate the far left that seems to think it's okay to take it easy on those violent criminals, right? To explain what the importance of public safety is and how it's good that she is proud of her history as a prosecutor.
Yeah, and I thought she did that really effectively.
She did.
Right?
I liked it.
She didn't just say, I'm tough on crime generically. She
Right.
explained why she was tough on crime to protect the victims. And the story that she had of her friend who was sexually abused. So she said that's why she became a prosecutor. Is that the main reason, the only reason? I don't know. There's no way of knowing, right? But it's a powerful story.
Absolutely.
Right? And if it really was the main reason she became a prosecutor, then I respect her even more, right? I've got to protect people like this friend of mine that my family took into our house because she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. So,
you know, I think they're trying to find a way to endorse this ticket when they were very critical initially. And I just think it's very cynical on their part. What do you think? I think you're on mute. You're
There
on
we go.
mute.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
TYT did some coverage during the 2020 election, and I actually happen to remember some of that coverage. They played a video. They played, they did their debate coverage. In their debate coverage, they were highly critical of Kamala Harris and her record as a prosecutor. Now they're trying to find some good things, but and maybe they're right, about the drug and rehab thing being a good thing, because I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. But you have to be consistent. And if you were critical of Kamala in the 2020 election because of her record as a prosecutor, and now you're not critical of her, you can be fair and you can say, if I was giving a fair and balanced answer, I would say Kamala was wrong to do X, Y, and Z, but here's what was good. And you can do that. You can be fair and balanced and include all the nuance, but don't 4 years ago say this and now say this. That's not good. And that's not right. And Jank is all rah Kamala. Has he forgotten what the Democrats did to him when he was trying to run for president not too long ago in the primary, where they were crushing his campaign? Where, I guess he forgot all about that.
He did.
He did, and he shouldn't. He definitely shouldn't, because like Jank or not, I actually was in support of his campaign to prove that amendment was going to allow non-citizens to run if they wanted to. I actually was all for him taking that to the Supreme Court. But, the Democrats wanted to crush his campaign, and he's forgotten, let bygones be bygones. They didn't really mean to crush his campaign. They were just doing it for democracy, right?
The problem with people like Cenk Uygur and a lot of people on the left, well-meaning perhaps, is that they are too forgiving when the Democratic establishment take a shit on them, and it just seems to be something that occurs over and over again. It's I have never seen a group that has been, just a glutton for punishment as the left wing inside the Democratic Party. They are beaten up, spat on. They are like they're just absolutely just mistreated, dismissed. They're just considered like scum of the earth in so many ways, and it's kind of like, can we have another? Can we have another?
Right.
But the right-wing Republicans and the anti-freedom caucus can go and turn Kevin McCarthy into I'm going to be politically incorrect again. They turn him into his little bitch. I approve, not for their reasons, but I approve because the force to vote thing worked on their behalf. I can't stand Kirsten Sinema. I can't stand Joe Manchin, but they destroyed Build Back Better with their version of force to vote. But whenever the left tries to go and exert themselves a little bit, they get smacked down, and they're like, "Hey, I'm sorry. We're going to try to behave a little bit better." And they just have this cautious approach all the time, and it's really, really frustrating.
And just something I want to throw in just really quickly about TYT, and this might be controversial. I've kind of moved past. I don't necessarily have a problem with them anymore. I've kind of accepted them for what they are. I definitely think they're better than MSNBC, but I think the left spends a lot of time wasted between fighting TYT and Kyle Kalinske and Jimmy Dore and all of that nonsense. I think we've wasted enough time fighting on all of that, and they've wasted enough time fighting with each other because they all agree on the core policies, but they're too busy trying to kill each other and decide who's leftier than thou to get anything done. They've wasted all of our time and energy, and we've helped them with it because the audiences have wasted time fighting each other themselves. It's a waste of time. It doesn't get anything done, and it's not going to get us Medicare for all. It's just not.
No, we can't unite on anything anymore. I mean, it's just like, and I agree with you because I've been thinking about that lately myself, and as I said, I mean, none of them, all these people we just mentioned, the TYTs, the Jimmy Dores, the Kyle Kalinskes, the Sam Cedars, all of them, they're just like at each other's throats. None of them are as good as they were 4 or 5 years ago either. They all have kind of gone downhill. Every last one of them have gone downhill in one way or another. Because we're all kind of pissed that we can't get anything done. Everybody's on the left. They accuse each other of being right wing, and you're right wing. No, you're the one that's right wing. No, everybody's on the left. They just have a different perspective of how to get there. And sometimes, you're not going to all agree on every single thing. And people are too quick to make a judgment on others, and they're thinking, well, you don't believe with this, then you're just a scum of the earth and what have you. And again, we get nothing done. The right gets more powerful. The corporate Democrats get more powerful, and we get smaller and more irrelevant.
What if TYT and Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kalinske and Majority Report and all of these, instead of fighting each other, would actually work together as one megaphone to try to mobilize their bases? Maybe we get some more done.
I just don't see it happening.
They're not going to do it. Personality over policy. They can't get along with each other professionally. David Pakman, all these guys, they have these issues with each other where their egos are getting in the way of us getting anything done. Especially, and I'll say this here, Cenk Uygur and Jimmy Dore completely are two of the most, you can like them, you can be on either side. They have two of the biggest egos in media. And you think when they fight, it's not going to affect, neither one of them are going to admit that they're wrong. Yeah, and I see that comment in the chat. I don't think they're grifting. I think they're misguided, and I think they're wasting our time. I think they genuinely believe in the policies, and they all think they're doing the right thing to get us there. And I think it's a waste of time, everything that they've done up until now. I think they've wasted our time. I think we've wasted time on them, and we should just completely ignore them. I think we should ignore them and let them have their little petty fights. And if they want to come and join us and help us as activists, we should let them. But I don't think we should pay any more attention to their fights. And we shouldn't get involved in them ourselves, because that's what ends up happening. I'll go to activist meetings where people will be fighting over that as proxies for TYT and Jimmy Dore. Why are you fighting on behalf of Jimmy Dore and Cenk Uygur in an activist meeting? What's that going to do for anybody?
No, I mean people sit there and base their opinion on somebody else by who you listen to, or who you watch. It's so silly. It really it's kind of silly when you think about it. I mean, just now if you're listening to Pod Save America, okay, I'm going to make fun of somebody who's going to listen to Pod Save America. I mean, they get no mercy. But as I said, if you're listening to Jimmy Dore, you're listening to TYT, you're listening to whomever, it's ridiculous. So, and I kind of covered most people here. I did a little Jimmy Dore in the beginning, where he's at the, talking about the heavy police presence and all of that. So, as I said, I kind of covered somewhat across the board here. Not every single personality or what have you, because that'll take 12, 13 hours. And I'm not going to do that. I won't make you have to suffer through that, Shane.
I see Jimmy put in the chat, justice is coming. Maybe I'm too far up in the chat. That's Jank's book that took him 3.5 years to write, just so everybody knows, that I pre-ordered and waited and waited.
Yeah.
I think I just got it.
Sounds like porn. I mean, just So yeah, I mean, it's just nuts. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. I forgot to play that, but that's not important. I was going to play Joe Biden's speech for them talking about it from the BBC, but I'm not going to play that. Let's see. I guess we'll play one more. I guess we'll play. Let's see which one we'll play. Let me find it. And
do you mind if I self-plug real quick? Yeah.
What's that now?
Do you mind if I self-plug real quick? I see some people talking economics in the chat.
Okay,
so,
not a problem. Not a problem. Absolutely.
Sure. So, Choosy, I see you talking about how we're in debt and all of that stuff. I welcome you to, and it's because of the wars, I welcome you to go to understandingmmt.org. We have an article called The Real Cost of War, and it explains what the national debt actually is. Can we afford the war? And it's a moral question of whether we should, whether or not we can. So take a look at that. Understandingmmt.org.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to play this video here from Kyle Kalinske. I will make fun of the hair dye. Yeah.
I wish he wouldn't have done that.
Huh?
I said I wish he wouldn't have done that. I took him a lot more seriously before he dyed his hair and started vaping on stream. I'm sorry. He had this serious kind of podcaster vibe, and he's I don't know how to explain it.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't care if he vapes, but it's like
it's just
he
the
can be a
whole
little
look.
more
I don't care that he vapes either, but the look of it, the way he does it, it's just weird. And
it's too casual.
Yes. And he had this serious kind of vibe before. Like he was respectable, serious. And now it's just like
Crystal ruined him. I'm sorry. He ruined him.
You know what?
Yeah.
She just wanted to look more serious than he does. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the hell. I mean, just like, yeah, he looks ridiculous. I laugh every time I see a Cole video. It's like, dude, I mean, and he's actually of the large name people, he's still a little better than the others. But
yes.
the problem is he looks silly. He looks silly. He acts silly. I mean, he used to act silly, but there was still a professional.
Yes.
Yeah. He did it with he still did it with a little bit of professionality up there. But I mean, it's like he doesn't look prepared most of the time. It's kind of hard to describe. So he's really got, what's sad is I got involved with this. I was inspired by Kyle Kalinske. That's the sad part about it, and to see him going downhill. But I guess I'll talk. Play a little bit of this about Tim Walz when he starts talking.
You over the head with some policy substance here. So you are going to know more about Tim Walz's record and his policies than anybody in the world. I'm about to walk you through just as much as humanly possible of his record and his policies and the kind of politician that he is. So you're already familiar with some of it, but we're going to get a hell of a lot deeper in this segment. So as I told you, day one, as soon as Kamala became the one, if you ask me, hey, who would you have be Kamala's VP in the whole country? Who would you pick? I would have picked Tim Walz over Bernie Sanders. Now,
I'm sorry, we're having connection issues here or something. It's buffering real bad. Hopefully, get it to working a little bit better. Give me.
Bernie's got issues in terms of age now, obviously, right? If the nominal reason Biden's stepping aside is age, I don't want to replace him with somebody who's older. There's that. But honestly, even from a policy perspective, the thing about Tim Walz that's better than Bernie is that their voting records are similar, but Tim Walz has much better political instincts. And I think he's also a much bigger fighter. So he has this reputation as being bipartisan when he was in Congress. But the thing is, as Tim actually says in his speeches, I learned to compromise without compromising my values, right? Now, again, to be fair, Bernie was called the Amendment King for a very similar reason. But the difference is, I feel like the speeches and the interviews and the debate moments of Tim Walz, he's willing to hit the right harder than Bernie is. Okay, so having said all that, let's dive into it here. As you all know, Tim Walz is by far the best Democratic governor in the country. He had a 1-seat majority in Minnesota, and he implemented the following: universal free school meals, legal weed, carbon-free electricity by 2040. He did tax rebates for the working class up to $1,300 if you make under $150,000 a year. 12 weeks paid family leave, 12 weeks paid sick leave. He banned gay conversion therapy because, of course, it doesn't work. He did red flag laws for guns. That means if you are having a mental breakdown, it becomes illegal for them to confiscate your guns until you're no longer having a mental breakdown. Universal background checks for guns, that polls at like 80 or 90%. Automatic voter registration. Free public college if you make under $80,000 a year. He banned the PFAS, which are forever chemicals, which have some health consequences associated with them. He did a $2.2 billion increase in K-12 school funding, and he did sectoral bargaining for nursing home workers, which, of course, massively raises the wages of nursing home workers. So this is the list that you're familiar with, right? What you don't know is that when I initially crafted this tweet and came up with this list, it was based on like 1 or 2 articles that came out when we were learning about what I'll call the Minnesota Miracle, how they just did so many base things in such a short time span. But there's so much more to this guy. So he's also a congressman, right? And this is also only part of his agenda as governor. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper. These are other policies of Tim Walz that I hadn't mentioned in that other tweet, both as a congressman, some as a congressman, and then some as a governor. He opposed the Wall Street bailouts in 2008. This is when he was in Congress. Based. This is like Bernie did it.
The reason I play this is basically he endorsed Jill Stein earlier, and now he's propping up Tim Walz as a VP. Now I get it that Tim Walz is probably the best VP probably since Walter Mondale in the 1976 and 1980 campaign for Jimmy Carter, because a lot of people don't remember how he was actually significantly further left than Jimmy Carter, believe it or not. But I think that Kyle's getting very, very carried away here, and I hope that this does not mean he's going to end up supporting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because he provided free lunch for kids in the school in Minnesota, which I'm all for. You know, I mean, that's basically, I mean, he did more than that, like he just mentioned, but it's kind of like, a few breadcrumbs, and some of these people get excited. Oh my God, they're going to start doing stuff now. We got reason for hope. Any thoughts on that? Oh, I think we're having a connectability issue again. I'm not sure. But anyway, until he gets back on, I'm just going to say this. I just think I just think it's very silly to go and act like that he is the most wonderful candidate you can imagine, because he provided free lunch for schools and all of that, and done a few things like free college for people under a certain income bracket, and I'm legalizing marijuana is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, and all that. I'm all for these sort of things, but the fact that I just wish that people wouldn't get so carried away when Democrats do something that's you would expect them to do. You should expect that. Hold on a second. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, any thoughts on? I was just telling people how silly I think Kyle is, getting super giddy over Tim Walz just because he threw a few breadcrumbs.
So, look, I think Tim Walz has a decent record as a governor. I think you're right. They're breadcrumbs, whatever. But he probably does. He's right. He probably does have the best record of any Democratic or Republican governor. Yes, fine. He is not the presidential nominee. He is not writing the policies for the campaign. Kamala Harris is the nominee. She's not that she's actually writing the policies, but she has to agree to all the policies. She said, I want my presidency to be like Tim Walz's record in Minnesota. I don't believe her. I'm sorry. I don't. I don't think she wants to do that. So, if she did, she would have come out. Where is her national free school lunch and breakfast policy? Where is it? I haven't heard her talk at all about that. So as good as Tim Walz may be, or as mediocre, or however you want to frame it, he is not the nominee. Kamala Harris is the nominee. So it's her campaign. When you vote, you don't vote for the vice president. You vote for the president. So no, you're not voting for Tim Walz to be president. It can be great what he did in Minnesota. It could be whatever. You are not voting for Tim Walz to be president, and there's no guarantee Kamala is going to do anything that he did in Minnesota on the national level. She hasn't come out. I mean, I don't even think, like I said, I don't think she has any policies out yet at all. I mean, I haven't seen a website, and if, like I said, and if she does, it's probably just been started. And I actually like Tim Walz. I have respect for Tim Walz, because he did stuff. But I don't think that he's necessarily going to be a huge impact on the ticket necessarily.
Same here.
I don't think so. And again, if she wants her record to be like Tim Walz's record in Minnesota, where is her free college policy? Where is her free school food policy? Where are these policies that she said she wants to mirror? I haven't heard her talk about them once. They certainly were not in her speech, I don't think, at the DNC.
Not at all. I do have a theory. You're right. You're supposed to vote for the president, not the vice president, because really the vice presidents don't really make the policy as a general rule. The only twist I would say is that when Trump chose Mike Pence as his running mate, I argued that he chose somebody that was actually to Trump's right, Mike Pence. He's quiet and he's mousy and doesn't really make a scene. And that's the way Trump likes his candidates to be, for the most part, quiet in the background. Also, while Trump was making his speeches around the country, his silly speeches around the country, being lazy, he had Mike Pence doing all the really fucked up Republican things that all of us hate Republicans to do. But Trump chose Mike Pence because there were Republicans back then that did not trust Trump, and they thought he was not as conservative. Believe it or not, there were people in the Republican Party that did not trust him to be a true conservative. I mean, they thought he was an interloper. They thought he was a closeted liberal. Believe it or not, Harris chose Waltz. I think for a similar reason from the opposite end. I think that she chose Waltz because she was smart enough to realize that the Democrats had been punching left for so many years, and it looks like there was going to be a revolt. And while some people claim not choosing Josh Stein, what's his name, the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. Okay, Josh Stein's running for governor of North Carolina. Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, because he's it has something to do with the Israeli-Palestinian issue. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think he chose Tim Walz because Tim Walz sort of can galvanize maybe that Bernie energy, possibly, and because of the punching left. She's smart enough to realize maybe we've been punching left, or maybe her advisors say, hey, look, we've been punching left for so long. There looks like they're going to do a serious revolt. We better symbolically throw a bone at these people. So Tim Walz was the bone that they decided to throw. And I think that maybe it's attracting people like Kyle and people like Shank Uger and all these folks. They're all excited. They're about to have an orgasm over Tim Walz. And I understand why they're excited, but they need to calm down.
They do. And look, at least wait and see what her policies are going to be with Tim Walz's influence before you get so excited. Because putting Tim Walz on the ticket is one thing. But what are the policies? She doesn't talk about them. Did you see her? They asked her what she was going to do about inflation. She goes, well, inflation's a really big issue, and that's why it's important.
Yeah.
Okay. She's really good at that.
Yeah, and that's word salad right there. She's good for word salad.
She should have picked Pete Buttigieg to be her VP because together they could make the biggest word salads.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You're right about that. You're right about that. Yeah, the ladies from The View were wanting a Kamala Harris Pete Buttigieg ticket.
I wouldn't understand what they were saying. I don't think. I'm sorry. I don't think I'd understand what they were saying.
Yeah, that's what they were wanting. But as I said, just watching this whole thing, yeah, I think again is a way to kind of galvanize the base a little bit, and it may work. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I still think I think that anything can happen right now between now and election day. I mean, with the world situation, being on the cusp of World War III, everything just getting nuttier, seemingly like every couple of weeks. So, I don't know if we're about to have a major breaking war. A full-scale war, in a regional war in the Middle East, and that's not a good situation, and that could do Kamala Harris in real quickly.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and I'm just thinking, do you have any final thoughts right now? Because I'm going to eat in a few minutes.
Like I said, the only thing I'll say is, all these people getting excited. Tim Walz is not at the top of the ticket. Kamala says she wants to have her record like Tim Walz's record in Minnesota, has not talked about doing any of his policies on the national level. Remember that. Just remember that. And remember, she really doesn't have a policy platform out there yet. So don't get so excited. And also, people are saying, Tim Walz is trustworthy. Jesse Ventura likes him. I don't care how trustworthy Tim Walz is. Kamala Harris is not trustworthy at all.
No,
not
at all.
Presidential candidate. So, and the one thing I'll say about Josh Shapiro is, apparently he had a really bad interview. I don't know if you saw the reports of that. His people were saying he came back like really depressed from his interview.
Yeah, I heard about that interview, and that interview kind of did him in because he was kind of cocky in that interview initially.
And then they tried to put out, the state Democrats in his state tried to put out an ad saying he was the VP to try to pressure to make the momentum. That was ridiculous, first of all.
Yeah, and she didn't take it too well.
No. So,
yeah.
But, that's pretty much my thoughts. I mean, look, I'm not going to tell anyone how to vote. If you want to vote for the Harris Walz ticket, you can vote for the Harris Walz ticket. If you want to vote for Jill Stein, if you want to vote for Cornel West, vote for whoever you want. But the only thing I implore people to do when they're voting is look at the policies, not the candidate. At least make sure that, you agree with the policies you're voting for. At least if there's something you're voting for. If you're a single issue voter, make sure that issue is being supported. Don't just vote for, I don't recommend that you vote against someone. I recommend you vote for someone or for a policy, even if I don't agree with you on that. You should be voting for, not against. That's just my recommendation.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think people need to vote their hopes and not their fears. And voting in the two-party system is as I said, I'm not going to say never vote for anybody in the two-party system per se, but I'm going to say that when that is all people do, they're always voting their fears. Because I can't believe in this large, vast country that of all the people that end up voting, that they are excited about what they vote for every 2 years. I refuse to believe that. I don't care what side of I don't care what party it is. I refuse to believe that people are excited by the same garbage politicians that get themselves reelected every 2 years.
Right. And just something to consider. If you don't like any of the presidential candidates who are on your ballot, you can still vote. You can leave the top of your ticket blank, and you can still vote for your state offices and your local offices if you want to. So you don't have to vote for the president. And you can do that. You can, because that actually affects you more directly than the presidential candidate. So if you're thinking about not voting because you don't like the presidential candidates, think about your state elections that are coming up and your city elections, and maybe participate in those because they affect you more directly.
Ballot initiatives, constitutional amendments, local referendums, bonds
on the ballot. Yeah,
it's all kinds of things to vote for where your voice matters. I've actually debated whether I should vote again after the 2024 election for a candidate, but to vote for something that I can directly have a voice in, like a referendum or a constitutional amendment or bonds or what have you, that sort of thing, and just try to work on making doing what we can to make things better, I guess. So so anyway, I ran the show kind of long and all of that. So I'm talk to you really quick before I sign off, and I'll wish everybody a great day. And Shane, thank you for showing up this evening. It was great having you co-host the show, and
no problem.
Well, we'll have to have you back here again, maybe as a guest or something on MMT. So let me go ahead and do this, and I'll go ahead and I'll be signing off here.